Hey everybody, I'm back tonight and I thought I would do a fun project that I saw on YouTube myself, and I just thought, oh, this would be a cute little video. So we're actually going to make a crocheted joint, and the video that I saw, they put catnip in it so they could make it for a cat toy, but I just think it's a great gag gift. And I have some other gag gift ideas that maybe I'll make videos for later. So these are the items you'll need. White for the paper for the joint, red for the fire, and then a charcoal for the ash. Of course, stuffing, threading. I like a yarn threader, and then I don't know if this is even in the camera, and then a needle and yarn threader, pair of scissors, and if you need a stitch marker as well. Okay. Oh, and then the hook, since it's a small project, I went with a smaller hook. I went with a 4.5mm hook. I haven't made this before, so I'm just kind of guessing. I want it to be tight stitching, so I went with a smaller hook. So let's get started. So clear off your space, and we're going to start with the red. All right, so what we're going to do is start with a magic circle or magic ring. And it already has your chain 1, and we are going to do 8 single crochets into the magic ring. So some people like to put a stitch marker in that first stitch so that when you do your join, you can see it more clearly. Okay, so I just finished my 8 single crochets, and I wanted to show you something that may happen to you, and it may confuse you a little bit. If you notice, my single crochet is kind of twisted, so I want to make sure that I have it straight when I close my magic circle. So making sure all the tops of your stitches are in line, and then I always pull out a loop so you don't lose your work, and then just gently pull your magic ring together, nice and tight. Whoops, dropping things. Okay, and I like to weave my tail into my magic ring. That is my preference. Some people don't, and they like to sew it in. Whatever works for you. Okay, so now we're ready for the next round, and we're going to slip stitch it into that first single crochet. So you see how it might be hard to see where that, you may want to go into this stitch, which this is actually the second stitch. So that stitch marker really helped to see where that first stitch was. So if you like to crochet your tail end, your hook has to go underneath the tail, and then you're going to slip stitch into that first stitch. It's a little awkward because I just like to do it with the stitch marker. Well, I'm gonna have to take that stitch marker out. It's too tight. You may hear little pitter patters. That's my dog walking around. He's checking everything out. He's been locked up in the kitchen all day. So he's like, oh, what's going on out here? Okay, so now you just closed round 1. And I can just pull this a little bit more and close that circle up a little bit. Okay, so for round 2, if you don't want a really fatty, you can just stop there with the 8, and then you can start the next color. But I'm gonna go one more round because I'd like to do a little fatty. So what I'm going to do is chain 1, and then we're going to do 2 single crochets into each stitch. So that'll give us a total of 18 after this round. So after I get my first single crochet in there, I'm going to put my stitch marker back in there. And this is really helpful if you're new to crocheting and it's hard for you to see the stitches. If you're experienced, then you may not need to use that stitch marker. Okay, so that's the first one into that first stitch. Now the second one's always kind of rough getting it in there. on that first one. All right, so now we're just going to continue around 2 single crochets into each stitch from the previous round. So that at the end will give us 16. All right, go ahead and do that, and I'll meet you back as I am closing my round. Okay, so before I go any further, I wanted to show you a little trick that I like to do just to kind of hide the tail a little bit. So I have 15. I stopped after I did the first stitch of my increase. And so now what I'm going to do is cut my tail so that little bit of excess, or that little stump, doesn't show, because then the next stitch for the increase will hide that itty bitty little stump. So now I'm going to finish off the round with my 16th stitch, and there's my stitch marker telling me where to slip stitch. So what I'm going to do is, this is the round now that we're going to change colors into the charcoal or the ash. So when I change a color, I stop at this point. I get my color. Oops, it's all clumpy here. All right, let me cut this knot off at the end. When I yarn cake, I always put a little knot into mine. Okay, so now I'm gonna make a little tail, and I'm gonna kind of hold it all together, and I'm gonna bring in that charcoal, okay? Chain 1, and now you're gonna do 1 single crochet all the way around, so you should have 16. So we will meet you back at the end, and after the charcoal, we're gonna go into the white. So I'm not gonna close my my round, because I'm going to change my color to white. So I will do that on camera, and we'll do it together. All right, so continue crocheting around, and I'll meet you after the 16th stitch. All right, so I am ready now to close, and I wanted to point something out that I notice happens with a lot of new beginners when they're crocheting. They don't realize, because the work is starting to curl up, that this is the outside of your work and this is the inside. So you need to remember to kind of push your work out, because then you're going to be almost crocheting it inside out. So you want to make sure that you are having the front of the stitch facing you, and that your work is going, that the outside of your stitch is always the outside. I don't know how else to say it. But anyway, so I am ready now to switch colors. So I did my last gray, and I'm going to insert my hook into the first stitch, and then I'm going to attach my white. And I have not yet cut off my red, and I will do that now. I always wait until I complete a round. Let me just chain 1, and I'm just going to quick throw in a stitch to kind of lock that white in there. Okay, so now I'm going to flip my piece over, and I'm going to take my gray out of the way and my white, because I just added the white. So now I still have my red attached, so I'm going to cut that off, and then I have my gray from when I attached the gray, and I'm just going to tug on these a little bit, and that's going to tighten that stitch up, and then I'm just going to knot these. And you know, honestly, this is going to be the inside of your piece. Remember, this is like an amigurumi. It's a stuffed object, so you don't necessarily have to weave these in. I just think it's a waste of time. But keep in mind that you're going to be building white, and you don't want the gray or the red kind of you don't want to be able to see that through. So I'm going to cut my tail a little bit, but not too close, just so that it doesn't land within the joint area of the white. So now that we have the white on, we're going to crochet 1 around. So if you're holding your count, you should still be at 16. All right, so you go ahead and finish your 16 stitches, and you can actually slip stitch to close this round, since at this point now we are not going to be adding any more colors. And if you notice, as I'm doing this, my piece is curling inwards. So once I get around, I'm going to, with just the heat of my hand, kind of push it back into place so that I don't get lost in my work and get confused and actually crochet it inside out. I need a little bit more yarn here. Just gonna pop it out. And once I finish this round, I'm going to tie off the white and the gray. So see, this is the join. So I'm gonna ignore that, and I'm gonna go into my first single crochet and slip stitch. Okay, now I'm gonna go back here. I'm gonna actually pop it inside out. I'm gonna cut my gray off, and I'm gonna just yank on these a little bit, kind of tighten them up, and I'm gonna do a knot. And then I'm gonna trim the tail down a little bit because I don't want it showing through. So just give that a good little tug. Cut those down a little bit. So that is the end of that round. Now what we're going to do is 10 additional rounds. So you'll have a total of 11 rounds with the white. So let's do that, and then I will meet you back. Okay, so I just finished my 10 additional rounds. So there should be, oops, sorry, I wasn't in the camera view. There should be a total of 11 rounds of white. So now what we're gonna do is just open our loop up a little bit, and we're gonna start to stuff. And if you wanted to put catnip in it, I would put it in between the filling, so that it's, you know, a little bit here and, you know, throughout the joint, I guess. That's what it is. It's a joint. So I like to stuff it, but not to the point where your stitches are expanding and you can see the polyfill through the stitches. And then I just like to kind of tuck it in there because we're not done. Now we're going to start our decreasing rounds, and I don't want the polyfill fiber to get caught up in my stitching. So make sure your stitches are clear. And if it's if you stuffed too high, then take a pinch out. All right, so now what we're gonna do is start our decrease round. So insert your hook again. Okay, we're gonna chain one, make sure I'm in the camera here. So we're gonna single crochet for 3 stitches. My dog is clawing at my arm here. So 3 stitches. He is not a happy camper, is he, folks? Okay, and then we're gonna do a decrease. So a single crochet decrease, insert into the front loop, and then I like to just rotate my hook, get it into the second front loop, and then grab your working yarn, pull through the 2 front loops. Now you have 2 loops on your hook, yarn over, and pull through, and that's how you do an invisible decrease. So that's gonna be our pattern around. So you're going to single, whoops, I only picked up the front loop. You're gonna single crochet for 3 stitches. And I always like to pull after each stitch just to make it nice and tight. So I give it a little tug. Okay, so I just did 3 stitches. Now I'm gonna do my decrease. Hopefully I'm in the camera. and then tug. All right, so go all the way around. And I will meet you back after this round is finished. I'll do one more decrease on camera and then I'll pause it. Oops. Okay, I'll meet you at the end of this round. After I paused it, I realized there were only 2 stitches left in this round. So then you're just going to do 2 stitches at the end. And then you're going to slip stitch into the first stitch. Okay. Okay, so that was our first round of decreasing. Now you can do one round of just single crochets. This way it's a gradual decrease. And it also depends how long you want your joint. If you are happy with the length and you don't want to make it too much longer, you can just skip all of these single crochets around just to get it to a ending point faster. But I think it's just funny, a crochet joint. So I'm going to make it big and bold. So I'm going to crochet around one round, and then the next round I'm going to decrease again. Get some more yarn here. Trying to make sure I'm in camera. It's really weird to be crocheting and then watching the camera to make sure my hands are in view. Fending my dog off at the same point. All right, a couple more stitches. One more. Okay, so that is the first single crochet around after that first round of decrease. Now we're going to do our next round of decrease. So before we did 3 stitches and then a decrease, and now we're going to do 2 stitches and a decrease. So chain 1, single crochet, 1, then 2, and then a decrease. So in the front loop, rotate your hook, the second front loop. I like to give it a little tug and tighten, and then complete your single crochet. All right, oops, only got that first loop. All right, so go ahead and finish this round. So remember, you're doing 1 single crochet in 2 stitches. So single crochet, and then decrease. And if it doesn't work out evenly, whatever you have at the end, just fill them with single crochets, okay? And I will see you at the end of this round. Okay, so as I was coming to the end of that round, I did my last decrease and then I only had 2 stitches left, just in case you were curious if you were on track with the same stitching. I did not count how many stitches I have, because quite honestly, this is the kind of project that if you skip a stitch, you're a stitch short or a stitch over, it's really not a big deal. Unless it's huge, don't worry about it. Now this round, I'm gonna do 1 round of single crochet around. This way it's just, because you can already see how it's starting to come in. And of course your hole here is getting much smaller. So 1 single crochet round, 1 in every stitch. And then I'm going to put a little bit more filling in there because the hole is getting smaller, and as it gets smaller, it gets harder to fill. You'll notice that as we get closer to only having 6 stitches when we finally close the project. Okay, one more stitch. Okay, I'm gonna close, slip stitch into the first stitch, put a little tug, and I'm gonna put some more filling in there. All right, so I'm going to do one more round of decreasing because it's getting really tiny. So now I'm going to do 1 single crochet and then a decrease. I'm going to get this all tight, make sure, oh, see, I'm not on camera again. All right, so chain 1, single crochet, and then decrease. And then single crochet. And decrease. One more single crochet. And then this actually works out evenly to decrease. Sure does. It's hard because I'm making my stitches really tight. So it is much harder to get in those stitches. Do a little yank. Actually, I have one more stitch left. I thought it was going to work out evenly. Okay, one more stitch. Now I'm going to slip stitch into that first. Oh, goodness. I'm so sorry. I wasn't even on the camera there trying to hold it together. And see. I'm going to slip stitch. Goodness, that's tight. Okay, so now I'm going to leave a tail because we're going to close it. So leave a decent length of yarn. I don't like to struggle when I'm closing it. So now I'm going to yarn over and pull through, and then I'm going to tighten this, and then I'll show you how I close my pieces. But before I do that, I want to try to get a little bit more stuffing right at the end. And so it's really hard now because this hole is really small. So if you have your hook, you can use your hook to get it in there. I don't like to do that because of that hook. I used to have a bamboo, like a chopstick. That was what it was. I used to have a chopstick from when I bought my big bag of polyfill, and I would use that. See, now I'm just pushing it in, so that's not a good idea. maybe I'll use my needle. Sometimes you got to get creative when you're crocheting. So I'm pushing it in and kind of holding it in place. Takes a little longer, but it gets the job done. Okay, that's good. It feels really solid in there. So just give it a roll. All right, so now I'm going to close it up. So now I'm going to use my yarn threader because I'm old and it's hard for me to do it manually. All right, so now what I'm going to do is on that last round of stitches, I am going to just do the front loop, pull it through just the front loop, all the way around. Kind of do it loosely. I hope, oh, see, I'm forgetting I'm not on camera. All right, so that was my last stitch. So now, when you pull it, it just closes so nice. When you do that front loop, just give it a good tug. Okay. I'm gonna attach my yarn again to my needle. Now you're gonna wanna knot this off so it doesn't fall apart. Hopefully the recipient knows to not throw this in the wash, but I mean, I guess they could if it got dirty, but if you're using it with catnip in there, I surely wouldn't put it in the wash. And there goes my dog again. Sorry about the shaking. All right, so I'm gonna put a knot in here. Just pull that as tight as I can. And then I'm gonna weave this in. So if you've ever done amigurumi, a great little trick is to put it right in next to where you know the yarn is coming out, and then come out any hole, doesn't matter. This helps lock that yarn in there too. And then when you go back in the exact same hole. And remember not to pull too tight so that you're not making divots. And then you're just kind of sewing it into that polyfill that's inside, coming out a different hole. And then when you just pull enough where it just disappears. And then I'll just go in one more time. And come out some other hole. There's one. Okay. And so now I'm gonna snip that off, and then you can either push it in with the back of your needle, or I just like to stick it in and pull it through. And there you go. One joint. That's kind of funny. I just think it's hilarious. All right, folks. I hope you enjoyed it. And see you on the next video.